Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Krista Ellis. I'm the Community Programs Manager with the Parkinson's Foundation, here to host and facilitate our Mindful Mondays with you all. I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Light of Day Foundation, whose generosity has made this programming possible. And before we go into the mission and housekeeping items of the Parkinson's Foundation, I'm going to let our speaker take over the microphone and just jump right into our mindful meditation. So as I was mentioning before, Dr. Rush has been with us almost a year now, I think it is, helping facilitate our Mindfulness Mondays. She's a regular practitioner of meditation and here to speak with us today about the beginner's mind. Dr. Rush?
Thank you so much, Krista. So welcome, everyone. I am so excited to be with you again today. For those of you who have been in these sessions before with me, you may remember I am a health psychologist at Cleveland Clinic in Cleveland, Ohio, and I work in our movement disorder section. So I work with a lot of people who have Parkinson's disease, and oftentimes use mindfulness, meditation, and other mindfulness practices as part of my treatment with individuals. And so as Krista and I were kind of brainstorming ideas for today's topic, I brought up the idea of maybe spending a little bit of time on the concept of beginner's mind. And so you may have heard of this term before in some of your own mindfulness practices. And some of you may be completely new to the idea, and that is perfectly okay. I almost would rather you come in without any preconceived notions, as that is basically the idea of beginner's mind. So the Japanese Zen term for beginner's mind is Shoshin. And it's considered one of the central tenets of Zen Buddhism, and also one of the central tenets of mindfulness practice. So as many of you probably know, mindfulness and that practice was born out of Buddhism and some of the Zen practices. And we've kind of changed it and cultivated it in a slightly different, more secularized capacity, especially here in the Western world. So we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of beginner's mind and how to cultivate that a little bit more through your mindfulness practice, and perhaps helping to cultivate kind of a renewed sense of curiosity and wonder in your own life. So I think so many of us have been staring a lot at the same four walls over the past, year and a half almost now. And for many, they, see the day-to-day as being rather boring or mundane, and maybe now starting to branch out back into the world a little bit more. And so maybe there's a renewed sense of wonder and curiosity for things that used to be pretty normal parts of your day. And maybe you're even noticing a beginner's mind towards some of those things that you're getting back into, whether it's going to a restaurant or spending time with friends in person again. And so let's talk about how that kind of applies to a mindfulness practice. So with beginner's mind, we consider it a way to cultivate an I wonder kind of mindset. So oftentimes, especially through the years, as we gain experience, as we gain expertise, as we gain familiarity with different situations or people, we kind of create tracks of what we expect. Our narrative becomes a little bit more rigid. So we think we know things, and the more we think we know, the more our mindset and our perspective sometimes narrows. And so being able to cultivate a beginner's mind means we kind of shed some of those preconceived notions of what we expect in a situation, and instead try to just focus on what it is that is actually in front of us and what's there. And so it's this idea of facilitating a sense of openness about what is around us right now. And as you probably well know at this point, mindfulness is about being aware in the present moment without judgment. And to do that, sometimes we need to shed what we expect, what we think should happen in a situation, and other expectations. So we call that emptiness of mind. And I see sometimes, especially in my folks who have Parkinson's, that they can sometimes struggle with this. And some of it is because they have expectations regarding what they should be able to do, because maybe their functioning has changed a little bit and what they can expect from their body. And as a result of that, they're frustrated by what they're not able to do that perhaps they used to be able to do, or they have fears of the future and what might happen and what could happen and what will their health look like, what will their quality of life look like. And so they get caught up in the future, and they can sometimes get entangled in the past. And so being able to cultivate a beginner's mind means that we try to come into any given situation and see it as something that's brand new, because at any given moment we're experiencing this moment for the very first time. Even if we've been through similar experiences, similar ideas, similar feelings, it doesn't mean that it's the exact same as this next moment. And so there is a book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, and it was written by Shunryu Suzuki. I'm probably mispronouncing some of that name, but I'm doing my best. And one of his famous quotes from that book is, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few." So again, it kind of brings us back to that idea that we kind of funnel our lives, and we don't necessarily see situations for what they are. Rather, we see what we think we should expect. And in psychology, we call this a confirmation bias. So we come in with an idea or a belief or a preconceived notion, and our brain will kind of scan for information that supports what we already believe. And we may not even realize that it's doing this. It does this somewhat on a subconscious level. And our brain may also discard information that either runs counter to what we believe or what we may see as irrelevant. So think of practicing beginner's mind as being able to lift some of that filter of confirmation bias. So instead of just seeing what helps us to make sense or confirm our own beliefs or expectations, actually being able to see a situation or an object or a person in a way that allows us to open up and see all of it rather than just what we are already coming in with. So it kind of boxes in our world a bit, and it can foster frustration and disappointment because things may not always line up to our expectations. And so part of beginner's mind, and this is from actually Jack Kornfield, he talks about needing to shift from an I know stance to an I don't know stance. And so again, it's a matter of coming to a situation not with the mind of an expert, but the mind of someone who's seeing it as if it's the first time. And so I think of that, and I think many of us sometimes will witness this through how children approach a situation or view things or question things. And I very distinctly remember when my now almost 10-year-old was one. And we had this routine every Saturday where we would go to our mailbox to grab the mail and come back. Now, if I were to have just left our front door, go to the mailbox and come back, that would probably take approximately 2 minutes. But with her at age one, she had just learned to walk. She had just learned to, get around a bit more independently. This was like a 20-minute process because she would stop at every flower, every leaf, every bird she would see in a tree and look at it, comment on it, pick it up. Every leaf was something amazing. And oh, this one's different because this one's a different color, or this one's dried and this one's still fresh. She had all of these, fascinations. She'd see ants running across the sidewalk and she'd have to sit and watch and see how they were, trailing back to their anthill or how they were carrying things in their tiny little pinchers. And so it was, at the time, sometimes a frustrating process for me, because my expectation is, hey, let's go get the mail and come back inside because, it's hot out here. And for her, it was, this is a new adventure every time. Didn't matter how many times we did it. It was always a new and fresh perspective for her and something joyous to be seen. And so I recognized my own frustration with the situation and how I had this, hey, let's go and come back kind of perspective. But once I let go of that preconceived notion, that expectation that, hey, this should be a 2-minute trip, and just kind of sat back and enjoyed watching her, I found myself being able to cultivate a little bit more of a beginner's mind myself. And so, certainly I think sometimes looking at it as if you are a child, or imagining your child or your grandchild and how they might view a situation, niece, nephew, whomever it might be, and seeing it through the eyes of someone who's never seen it before. And my other daughter, who's in that why phase, well, why does this happen, and how does this happen, and what's about this? She, sometimes will ask me questions, and I'm like, I don't know. I've never thought of that before. Why do we, have certain types of, colors for these things and not others? And so, she sometimes forces me into a beginner's mind for questions that I wouldn't have even thought twice about. So there, oftentimes can be a lot that we can learn from children. And we know that practicing beginner's mind can help us enhance our lives in so many ways. And so to be able to look at things without those shoulds, without those expectations, looking at them as if for the first time, it helps us to cultivate a better appreciation for what's in front of us. It can enhance that richness of experience and often can enhance creativity. There are many companies that have people do exercises that foster beginner's mind by saying, hey, here's an object that we've only used in this one way before. Try to find 10 other ways that we can use this object, or what's a different way we can go about this process, or being able to have better quality of our product. They want people to think outside of the box, and to be able to do so, you have to lift your expectations and lift your structure for how things should be. So beginner's mind helps us to not only cultivate that appreciation, but our creativity and sense of wonder. And it also can help minimize disappointment for what isn't. So if we come in and shed our expectations, shed our shoulds, as I sometimes say, we don't come in with this idea of what it needs to be. And so a good example of that, and there's actually been a lot of research about this, is vacations. So people may build up a vacation and say, oh my gosh, I can't wait until we go on this vacation. It's going to be so much fun. We're going to do this. I'm going to be able to relax. This is great. But then when they actually find themselves on vacation, they're already thinking, okay, now that we're here, we only have 5 days left. And now we're not going to, so things may not work out. It rained this day, so we couldn't go on this particular outing, or this particular location was closed, so we couldn't do that. And so people kind of have these expectations that then may not always be met. And it can cause these frustrations or disappointments. Whereas if we just come into it saying, hey, let's see what happens. Let's see what each day brings. Let's see what excitement may come up that I wouldn't have recognized or anticipated. It helps to minimize disappointment for what isn't, and helps us to enjoy what is. And it can also help us to curb those constant comparisons. And so again, for my folks who have Parkinson's, they often will say, gosh, I used to be able to swing my golf club with no problem. And I could, have this kind of game, and I could get through 18 holes in this amount of time. And now I can't. Like, okay, well, that may be true. Your body has changed and things are different. But what do you still enjoy about the game? What do you still, appreciate about being able to get out there? And maybe it's the fact that in the morning it's, you get out there early and it's kind of quiet and you can enjoy being out in nature. Maybe it's that you really enjoy connecting with friends or family. Maybe it's you can do things that help you to just appreciate and get the day off to the right start, even if the game itself, your performance itself, may not look the same. And so being able to appreciate what is rather than what isn't, and connecting with others. So often we come into conversation already thinking of what our rebuttal is going to be or what our response is going to be when people start talking, or say, oh yes, I know, I've done that, or I've been through that, or they come up with those comparisons to others' experiences rather than just sitting and perhaps listening intently on what the person is saying, and maybe having more curiosity about that person's perspective or their motivations, even if it's someone that we don't always necessarily agree with. And something that I will often say is that even if I don't understand at the surface why someone behaved a certain way or why they said a certain thing, I usually come into it assuming that people have a good reason why they are the way they are or why they act the way they do. I just may not know it yet. And so by being able to approach that with a fresh perspective and a beginner's mind, I can connect with that person a little bit differently rather than judging them and their perspective or their behaviors right away. You can meet them where they're at, and that can often foster a much richer relationship or richer conversation than if you come into it with your shoulds. So I thought that we could do a little bit of a beginner's mind practice today. And so this is probably going to look a little different than what we might normally do with a meditation, but let's see how it goes, okay? So in your immediate space of where you are viewing this Zoom meeting today, I want you to find an object that's within your line of sight or that's within reach of you. Okay. And this can be anything. It can be, a pen, it can be, a magazine, it can be, a piece of furniture, it can be anything. So I want you to pick an everyday object that's somewhere in your immediate vicinity that you can see, and even better if you can touch. Okay. So like for me, the first thing I saw on the desk here is a staple remover. So this is what I picked. So I'm going to have this right in front of me for this practice. So let's start. Now, once you've found your object of focus for this exercise, I want us to start with a mindfulness of breath practice just to kind of get us in the zone. So go ahead and get comfy in your chair, your couch, your lazy boy, whatever you're sitting in right now. And as with most mindfulness practice, we like to start by anchoring to the breath. And so you can close your eyes, you can find just a soft fixed gaze. And I just want you to start by connecting to the rhythm of your breath, the sensations of your breath. Again, not trying to change your breath in any way, but just noticing if you're breathing fast or slow. Noticing where you might feel your breath the most: nose, mouth, lungs, throat. Really just allowing your mind to settle in this moment. Assuring yourself that this is the absolute only place you need to be right now. And then shifting attention a little bit to anchoring into your body. For some people, it's anchoring to, having a straight, strong back. For others, it's anchoring to the feet. Just feeling those feet really ground you into the floor. And just take a moment to feel grounded, not just in your breath, but in your body, in the here and now. And now I want you to, if your eyes are closed, go ahead and open your eyes. If your eyes are open, focus your vision on that object you identified in your immediate space. And at first, I just want you to kind of take notice of how your brain may conjure labels for this object or what its function might be. So if you're looking at a staple remover, you might say, this is a staple remover and it's used to remove staples. But I want you to try to distance yourself from the shoulds or the expectations of this object. And I just want you to look at it as if it's the first time you've ever encountered this object in your life. And you're trying to describe it to someone who has also never seen or used that object before either. So let's start with, what does it look like? What are the colors that you would use to describe that object? It may be uniform in color. There may be several different colors. There may be ways in which the colors play off of each other. Maybe also noticing the shape of the object. How would you describe it to someone who's never seen it before? And perhaps adding other characteristics, texture, areas of shading, areas of light. If it's an object that you can touch or pick up, maybe doing so. Noticing, what does it feel like? Is it smooth? Is it rough? Are there some areas of each? Does it remind you of other things that feel similarly? And if you didn't know what its purpose or its function was, what else could its function or purpose be? How might a child interpret this object? With the addition of wonder, imagination, what could it be? And maybe thinking about the journey this object has been on. From its most raw, natural state to its cultivation, creation, possibly assembly, possible chemical processes, until it reached a finished state within your home. What kind of journey has that object been on? How many individuals possibly contributed to making this object what it is today? Maybe noticing an enhanced appreciation for how so much of what's in our home is contributed by various individuals, from conception to manufacturing to shipping to sales to everything. And again, as you look at this object as if for the first time, do you notice anything about it? that you've never noticed before, that perhaps before you would have never even thought twice about. And give yourself a moment for appreciating new things that you're seeing about something that would otherwise have been mundane. Now go ahead and you can transition from the object and close your eyes or fix soft gaze towards the floor. And take 3 more mindful breaths right here. Now, kind of shifting your shoulders, moving your toes, opening your eyes. Now, I just challenge you that, perhaps each day you find one way at least to cultivate beginner's mind with a task or a situation or an individual that you might not otherwise see as something interesting or new or novel. And see if applying this beginner's mind perspective shifts your experience of that situation. All right. Thank you all for your wonderful attention to this task. Any thoughts or questions that we can certainly add to the chat if anyone has something that they'd like to say?
Could I just ask our group to, just for fun, write in the chat what object you chose to focus on?
I love that.
Oh, great. Okay, my eyeglass case, great. A pencil, my sock knitting project. Awesome, Joan.
Ooh, seashell. That's a good one.
Yeah, cell phone, that works too.
Ooh, paperweight, a bird, a memory stick. Ooh, granite. That's a good one. Ooh, water bottle, napkin. Yeah. Oh, I love this. This is great. Oh, you guys are good at this.
Mm-hmm. And I have a next follow-up question. So we haven't explored yet, at least during our time together, using a point of focus, a drishti is what we call it in yogic language, on helping us kind of keep our awareness into the moment. So really focusing the eyes. We tend to just close the eyes and breathe and come into either the mantra, the visualization. Did it help, or did you find it more challenging to have something for the eyes, an object to look at, to keep us engaged in our mindful practice? Good, Sarah says very focused. Excellent. Helpful. Great, Chris and Linda. And you can always say not helpful at all.
Yeah. Terrible. Awful. Yeah.
I find sometimes it kind of hurts, it strains my eyes. So I can even start like developing a little headache. More challenging.
More challenging. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Distracting. Mesmerizing. Different. Yeah.
Excellent.
And I think sometimes, it depends on kind of where we're at. And we sometimes need to be able to identify with an object outside of ourselves in order to anchor. And or if the environment may be a bit more overwhelming or chaotic, we need to sometimes anchor a little bit more within ourselves. And so it's okay to kind of flex and adapt depending on the situation and what you may need in that moment. That's part of mindfulness, right? Is what do I need in this moment? Because it's like a river, it changes moment by moment. So being able to kind of tap into that and recognize sometimes this is helpful and sometimes something else might be more helpful. It's good to have, I think, a mix of things. I call it, diversifying your portfolio, right? Make sure that you have a good mix of tools and options, because what your needs may be are different day to day, moment by moment.
That's great. And I like how, who said it before? I think it was Joan. Anyway, so I've had practicing candlelight gazing. You put the candle, turn it on, light the
You can do
candle.
that now.
Yeah. And you gaze at the light, and then when you close your eyes, you still have this image of the flame burning. So you can still see it, but you have less strain on the eyes, and you remove the distractions of the surrounding environment. So that's an option too. I really appreciate, Dr. Rush, you introducing us to this kind of, it's a new method, of course, for this group. So I appreciate you bringing some diversification to our mindful portfolio.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as you guys all know, we got to finish with our Parkinson's Foundation's housekeeping. This week, we're going to be having our Wellness Wednesday topic of newly diagnosed. So whether you were diagnosed this week, last month, last year, 3 years ago, however you decide and define your diagnosis, we will be talking and addressing the diagnosis of Parkinson's disease and how you can learn about resources and tools to help you live well with PD. It'll help you understand the physical and emotional impact of Parkinson's on the individual and the group, the family, the community. You can learn more about this program that's happening again this Wednesday at parkinson.org/PD Health. And here's a snapshot. If you want to take your phone out, you can take a screenshot. This is just an outline of our summer series for Wellness Wednesdays. So we're covering various topics across Parkinson's disease. So just taking a quick look of our lineup. Again, you can view this lineup at parkinson.org/PD Health. And just a reminder, every third Wednesday of the month is our Spanish week. So next Monday will be our Spanish Mindfulness Mondays. So tune in to our YouTube channel and find a practice, either one that you found most challenging or one that you really, really resonated with. And inspired by Dr. Rush today, something that fits your moment in that time. So maybe a focused gaze will fit you well next Monday. Maybe a body scan will fit you well. Maybe guided imagery, maybe a mantra. So go through and see just our plethora of recorded sessions from our Mindfulness Mondays and decide one that will either resonate with you well or that you would like to challenge yourself with. And then we'll meet back together live on June 28th. We'll be doing a mantra for pain relief. If you have any questions that we couldn't get to today, or if you're looking for some resources or other experts in Parkinson's disease, please do not hesitate to reach out to our helpline. That number is 1-800-4PD info. You can email them at helpline@parkinson.org. And of course, you can always reach out to me by way of your registration. You've got my email, you've got our telephone number. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Well, that concludes our time together today. I will see you guys live on June 28th. Keep practicing, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.